Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you to the days. We're out in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports all plays.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to ASAP in the morning. We got that fixed. We did a little cold open. It didn't work because I was muted, but it's cool. How you doing, everybody? That's what we're dealing with this morning. As you can see, I am rolling solo tonight. I am your host, Craig Campbell. Ray Cruz not able to join this morning. Pride will be at some point joining this morning, he said. So maybe we'll see him in a little bit, but let me know how you're doing this morning. I appreciate everybody tuning in. We are live this morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and of course on the Fox D Network, Tiki Live, Apple TV, and Roku. Apple TV is a new one. So we got a lot of good stuff happening on the ASAP network. So check us out, and you can find us on social media. You can find all your favorite shows on the ASAP network. All you got to do is search in the right areas. On YouTube, search ASAP Sports Network. On Facebook at All Sports All Plays. On Twitter at ASAP Network 1. And on Twitch at ASAP Network. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the share button, and comment during the show. We got the live chat going on. Love to interact with everybody and hear your takes on the latest news in the world of sports. You can also, on Facebook, if you're watching there, you can support the show and the network with stars. Honestly, I don't know what the hell that is, but hey, it helps the network and it helps us grow our content. So thank you for those that do support the show with stars. And hey, we're hitting some subscriber goals too. We've got just about 1,000 people subbed on YouTube. We've got 3,500, 4,000 on Facebook. So thank you to everybody that supports the network. So we're gonna kind of roll a little bit today. And I want to welcome everybody, but we're gonna kick it off starting with some Thursday night football. Thursday night football tonight, we got the Tennessee Titans and the Green Bay Packers. Tennessee has been on a roll. And this is a team that last year was the number 1 seed in the AFC. And then they didn't really make a ton of moves that were considered earth-shattering by everybody else. So they bring back a lot of the same people. You got Derrick Henry recovering from his injury. He hadn't really thought that he was going to be the same player. And now they're sitting at 6-3, the top of their division. And Green Bay the expectations were much higher because it's Aaron Rodgers, and that defense was still fairly strong on paper coming in. And now Green Bay is sitting near, they're in second place, but they're still a couple of games back. They're still a handful of games back behind Minnesota in the NFC North. And they finally got, I think, a surprising win. I think, got a surprising win against Dallas last weekend. And you got to wonder, did they get it back on track? This is something that we kind of talked about a little bit yesterday with kind of how each of these teams played in their last week. But now that game is tonight. And I think one of the big factors to pay attention to is the fact that both of these teams are very effective running the football. Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry, it's going to be a great matchup to watch, running, their running game versus the Titans running game. Green Bay is still trying to make a push for the postseason. Christian Watson had a huge game last weekend. Is he going to be able to keep that moving? Is he going to be able to keep that up? And Aaron Rodgers now finally figured out the cohesion of this offense. And at this time, we're going to bring in, there he is. There's Pride. Good morning, Pride. How you doing?
What's up, my boy? How you feeling, Greg?
We're good, man. We're just kind of talking some Thursday night football and awaiting your arrival.
Yes, sir.
I know you got some stuff going on as well.
Yeah, man.
Taking time, man.
I've been a walking L the last few days, and
You've been a walking L?
Yeah, I've been eating my words. Before I leave, I promise, I'll clarify on that. But if you'll indulge me in this conversation, let me ask you a question. With how bad this Packers team is, if the Titans do not win by at least 2 touchdowns, is it fair to say that any legitimate aspirations they have of winning a Super Bowl is officially dead?
I would think that if the Titans can't win this game, there's supposed to be a lot of snow involved, and it's probably going to be, as much as these two teams have been relying on the run, the Packers have been much less successful than Tennessee. But if Tennessee can't win this game, I think they've got a lot to be worried about.
That's just me. I think the same thing, to be honest with you. Like, the reality of the situation is this, right? Mind you, I said from the beginning the Packers are going to finish for under 500, and I'm still very comfortable in saying that, because in order for them to beat the Cowboys, let's be honest, it took Dallas to sell. Now, granted, Dallas is good at selling, but the fact remains, if you need to rely on your team to sell out for you to be able to capitalize on it, that's not a good formula, right? Now, like you said, they're trying to establish a run. The problem is that even though they should be establishing a run, for some reason, Aaron Rodgers is the only person who doesn't understand that. He's the only person who doesn't understand, oh yeah, we don't really have the weapons to just go out there and throw the ball 40, 50, 60 times. We don't have that. And I don't think it's a bad thing. But at the same time, you need to know himself and know his worth. He doesn't. He still thinks he's prime Rodgers. I said this before, bro. Listen, and when he's been on the team, they finished under 300 or under 500 3 times. First time they finished, it was because he was hurt. The other 2 times, they asked him to carry it, and the only thing my man could do is carry the team to L's. So to pretend like this is Tennessee's opportunity, because there's some people who still think, for some reason, whatever reason, that the Packers still have some hope at the playoffs. Some still do. So, in my opinion, bro, it's like, if Tennessee can't win this, then Ryan Tannehill needs to demand a trade, because they're wasting his potential. This is a top. Let me shut up. Let me stop before Randy gets on here and comes for my life. But the point remains, if I'm Tennessee, if I can't beat, I don't care if it's snowing, I don't care if it's raining, I don't care if it's sunny, I don't care what the situation is. If this Tennessee Titans team cannot beat the Packers, they'll win the division, because the only other people they got to contend with are the Colts and Lulz, right? But if they legitimately call themselves Super Bowl contenders, fam, drugs are a hell of a thing.
Yeah, Tennessee's brand of football is, and we saw how successful it is for 3.5 quarters against Kansas City a couple weeks ago. But to come out the next weekend against Denver, and basically that's kind of the game that honestly I'm expecting is this. I'm expecting it to be a fairly low scoring game. It's going to be really cold in the Green Bay tonight. A lot of Tennessee Titans, based on the injury report I was watching this morning, they're missing still a lot of players. Mm-hmm. And in last game, a fairly strong defense in Denver. I think that's kind of what's propping them up. Tennessee only got 63 rushing yards as a team, and Henry had 53 of those. But they weren't able to run the ball effectively against Denver, who's got a fairly strong run defense. And the one thing that it plays in their favor is that Green Bay has allowed a lot of rushing yards throughout the entirety of the season. And that plays well, but the rest of their defense is propping them up, in some games. So that's honestly, I feel like even though it's not going to be driving snow like it was in Michigan last night in a college football game,
right?
It's going to be one of those, I think, just slow, methodical games. I know Anthony mentioned that the corners for Green Bay will slow down the Titans wide receivers, but honestly, they don't have a ton of, they got rid of AJ Brown. They don't really have a ton of wide receiver help to begin with. So they're going to rely heavily on Derrick Henry.
Right.
And I think Green Bay is going to be prepared for that. And now I think it's going to be, if Green Bay tries to get pretty, like you're talking about, if Aaron Rodgers tries to be prime Aaron and get pretty, this is going to be an ugly game for Green Bay. But if they do what they did last week against Dallas, I think it's going to be a much closer game than some people are going to expect.
I'm just trying to make sure I remain consistent because I'm pretty sure I had that I had given the Titans the win. Yeah, so I got Titans over Packers, 100%. I think it's gonna be a blowout. I think Aaron Rodgers' ego is gonna try to make him throw. He's not gonna be able to because he's gonna end up complaining and he's gonna overthrow. He's gonna overthrow Lazard and go, "Oh my God, Lazard should have been open." It's like, no, you're an idiot. Shut up. Like, and everyone keeps talking about the Titans' injuries, but the thing I say, even with how injured they are, outside of their 1-2 punch with AJ Dillon and AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones, what else do the Packers bring on the table offensively? Nothing.
Yeah.
And most of the injuries are on the defensive side of the ball. And offensively, I mean, they run the ball. So as long as Derrick Henry is there, they should win this game.
Yeah, Tennessee, by all accounts, I think they are favored. They should be favored to win. Actually, Green Bay, based on what I'm looking at right now, Green Bay is actually favored in this game. They have the favorite. They have the favorite in the spread and the money line. So
I'm betting on. I'm taking that bet then. Shoot.
Yeah, it's Green Bay -3, but the over under is 41. So I'd take Tennessee to cover and the under.
On God, like I don't know. I don't understand why people, and I guess it's because it's Aaron Rodgers or whatever. But like I said, man, if you look back, when Aaron Rodgers had to carry, they finished under 500, and that was back when Aaron Rodgers was Aaron Rodgers, right? He was Aaron bleeping Rodgers. Now he's like, I don't know, discount John Wick who can't do his own stunts. That's the type of guy we're looking at right now, and it's sensational. Craig, before I leave, do you mind if I have a moment?
Absolutely.
There's a time in every man's life where he needs to look in the mirror, admit his wrongdoings, his mistakes. I don't know if you've seen my soliloquies, my humble posts I've been putting on Facebook lately. Allow me to clarify what's been going on. I've been Ben Simmons' public lawyer. I've been his what do you call those public defenders? That's what it is. I've been his public defender.
Attorney?
Yeah, that. Nah, I'm not even an attorney. I'm a public defender, bro. I'm fresh out. I'm doing cases no one wants to touch. I know it's gonna end horribly for me. I know we're gonna lose. But that's my quarterback. That's my quarterback. I'm like T.O. when he was talking about Romo. Like, I have been saying Ben Simmons has been misunderstood. And that everyone just wanted to hate on him. Craig, I don't know if you were one of the people who said Ben Simmons ain't got that dog in him. Mm-hmm. If you're one of the people who said that, I implied heavily and outright said if you believe that, you're an idiot. Craig, I would like to apologize to you. Mike Hughes, Big Daddy M, as we call him in the sheets. Michael, I apologize. I said on Facebook, and I said this. He said Ben Simmons don't got that dog in him, and I said Mike looks like a dog. And lo and behold, he must be a dog because he's been making my life rough, bro. Rob Scott, I love Rob. Rob and I always disagree. I feel like that's why I love Rob, because we always disagree. But if two people disagree, that means someone's got to be wrong. Rob was right, and he made me eat my words. I call this man a bona fide, bro. I call him a bona fide hater. Last night he got a bona fide apology. Jason McMillan, we call him Jay. He was another one who said, "Hey, look, he's been saying this back when Ben Simmons was in Philly. I don't know what it is about him, but when he plays, I don't see passion." I said, "Jay, you've had sex a lot and you've never felt passion before." That's what I told him. Jay, with full of passion and love, I apologize and rescind my childish, inexcusable comment. There comes a day when you gotta hold the L. And I've been trying so hard to defend Ben. I really have been. Ben Simmons is my Ryan Tannehill. For some reason, it's the hill I will die on. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is with Ryan Tannehill. I used to hate him when he was in Miami. I used to hate him. Goes to Tennessee, all of a sudden I love him. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's because he left the division. I don't know. But Ben Simmons, he ain't it.
I'm glad that you see the light.
Unfortunately, I have to. And I told you this before. So I have a dude up in Boston who knows some stuff, right? So when I first saw his report, I called him. I said, "Fam, I got a question." He said, "What's up?" I was like, "This report on Ben Simmons, is it true?" He said, "I'll put it to you this way. The Brooklyn Nets have already tried to trade Ben Simmons. The reason why they cannot trade Ben Simmons is because the best offer they were given was a second-round pick in 2026. And the second-round pick was towards the back end of the draft. That was the best thing that was offered for Ben Simmons." I've been saying people were haters. I've been saying they were delusional. I've been slandering the good names of other people on behalf of Ben Simmons. On this day, I see clearly I am an idiot. Benjamin Simmons, more like Benjamin Button, because my man, when it comes to passion, he butt.
He butt.
He got it, man. He butt. It's a shame that it had to come down to this. Again, the names: Craig, Jay McLovin, Mike Hughes, Rob Scott. And to all those in the comments too that said from the beginning that I've argued with back and forth. I've called people who watch idiots. And everyone told me the same line. Everyone, man, everyone. Just wait and see. I've waited and saw. I hate basketball. The Celtics are winning, so that's why I won't boycott it, all right? We winning, so I'm not boycotting it. But Ben Simmons let me down. He let me down. And again, I apologize to all of those I have insulted, argued, and slandered. Your forgiveness I ask. Until then, I apologize.
Well, I'm not going to be one to rub it in, Pride.
No, have your moment, Craig. Craig, have your moment. You deserve it. Have your moment, Craig. You deserve it, man. I gotta eat it.
Oh, don't worry. I think there'll be plenty of people that will kind of jump at that opportunity. But hey, we're all about professional decorum, around here. So it's not every take's gonna be right, and sometimes it takes time for players to kind of hit their stride, because you see all that raw talent that Ben Simmons has had, and John had made the comment that Ben Simmons hasn't been good ever since he left college. And to an extent, I think that's correct because
I don't think he's trash. I just think in terms of his mentality, like, what I've been doing for the Brooklyn games, I said, you know what? I'm not gonna look at him as Ben Simmons. I'm gonna look at him as just a random guy that I just want to see. And he plays like he just doesn't care. Like the way he plays, he like this is how I look at it. He when he first came into the league, he was a star. He did the star role, and it didn't look like it suited him. He became a superstar. Looked like it didn't suit him. It ends up, falling apart. He goes to Brooklyn. Now he's a role player. And it looks like he doesn't like that either. And it's like the only role left, bro, is being a bench player. Oh, wait, you already were a bench player and you were miserable doing that. So it's like you've had every single role possible to play as. And you just haven't, you just always look like I would rather be anywhere but here. And what bothers me is like, it's okay if you're a scrub. It's okay for a scrub. It's fine. But if you hustle and you give me something like that, like JaVale McGee is not good. He's not. But it's his hustle. It's his hustle. It's his, like, look, man, if I got to jump 10 times in a row, I'm going to jump 10 times in a row. Point blank. If there's a loose ball, I will jump and die for it. He's like, I have no problem doing those things. That's what elevates Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart is a solid player, 110%. But people are making arguments that he is a top 25 player in the league. That comes from hustle. Whether or not you think he is doesn't matter. But the reason he's in that conversation, yes, he's got talent, but it's that hustle. It's that extra oomph. That's why people love John Morant. That extra oomph, that hustle, that if there's a loose ball, I don't care if there's a 99% chance they're going to get it and I only have a 1% chance. I don't care. I'm going for it. That's my ball. Mm-hmm. Like, it's that kind of brings you up. He doesn't have that. Now, I don't know if he never had it or if he had it at LSU and it went away. I don't know what it was. But I think now we're at the point where, granted, it's 4 years because his contract lines up with KD's. I don't know if he makes it through the contract. I don't know if that happens because you've seen a team build around Ben, and Ben didn't like that. You now seen him be a cog. He doesn't like that. If KD leaves and now you're stuck with Kyrie and Ben Simmons, right? Because supposedly they might consider trading Kevin Durant. That's the word going out there that they're considering it. If you trade Kevin Durant, you are now stuck for the rest of this year with Ben Simmons and Kyrie. Now, notice I said this year because next year, Kyrie can walk if he so chooses. Whatever happens with the relationship between him and Brooklyn, that's up for debate. Whatever happens. But let's pretend he re-signs for 3 more years. You now need Ben Simmons again to play the role that he played in Philly, and he didn't want to do that. Mm-hmm. At some point, someone's got to sit down with Ben and go, Ben, respectfully, do you want to be here? Like, someone needs to have the conversation with Ben, like, keep it a buck with me, bro. Do you want to be here? Because if you don't want to be here, we can save both parties a headache, and we'll let you go. Because they try to trade him, and no one wants to give up more than a late second-round pick. Again, what year are we in? 2022?
Yep.
So you traded Ben Simmons, and you got to wait 4 years to get a late second-round pick? Like, to me, that's not worth it. But guess what? Keeping Ben Simmons, arguably, isn't worth it either.
I would go based on how it's so weird to see how a former number one pick kind of falls off so quickly.
Oh my god!
And I
dude.
think part of what helped him out at LSU, think about college basketball for a second. Even some of the top programs, like they're not playing against the top talent, like a Duke or whoever, like or Calipari at Kentucky always tries to get the biggest recruits, the best talent, and they're not always playing against the best talent every night, night in and night out. So that situation where they're playing against other talent that is levels below. And Pride's got to head out. He's going to try to come back. So let's discuss this a little bit. Let's discuss this in the chat with I know we've got Anthony's jumping in. We got Damien in here. And I just lost my headphones. There we go. How about that? Anthony's in here watching on Facebook. Let's have a discussion a little bit about Ben Simmons, shall we? Ben Simmons, when he was at LSU, his talent was head and shoulders above a lot of the players that he was playing against. So his talent stood out quite easily. But when you get drafted number one overall, and now you're going to the NBA and you're playing against some of the best athletes night in and night out, every single night you're lining up against guys that are trying to prove something. As soon as in the first couple of years, he's dealing with some of those injuries and, Philadelphia's saying, hey, trust the process. We're going to make this work. It's just going to take some time. Where it all went wrong for Ben Simmons is I think he was just he's in that mode. All right, I got to play as hard as possible to get that big contract. And then I'm set. And I think that's what happened. Look at when he signed that big contract. Where did his production go after that? In the tank. Then he starts. I'm not gonna hate on anybody for. I know he was out for mental health reasons. Then he had back issues. Now he's got some knee concerns this year. I'm not going to hate on anybody for the mental health thing. Not going to do it. But I will say that this load management and, oh, my knee's sore today, I'm not going to play, that soft mentality, that's not going to help your cause at all. And I think part of what's been going on with Ben Simmons is the fact that he got his big contract. He's more concerned about what's going on off the court, who he's hanging out with, who he's dating. That's what he's more concerned about. He wants all that great attention, but he doesn't want to take on any of the constructive feedback, right? That's what we do as fans and in the media is we give players constructive feedback. Some of them, a lot of it, it's haters, right? But it's constructive feedback because right now you've got Ben Simmons who isn't even taking opportunities to score. Like he's passing up on opportunities. In 10 games that he's played, he's averaged under 6 points a game, 5.8, 6 boards, and under 6 assists. His career average is 15.5 points a game, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. He's not taking scoring opportunities. He's passing up everything. He's even afraid to take the ball to the hole anymore because he doesn't want to get fouled. So I think the big thing for him is it's a lot of mental, I think, for him. Everybody gives him a hard time that he can't shoot threes. He doesn't shoot threes. But he never then took the time to go work on his shot. Off season, you're seeing him hanging out with celebrities and I think dating a Kardashian. I don't know. I don't follow their personal lives all that much I really don't care. I'll care about stuff on the court. And on the court, Ben Simmons doesn't look like the number one pick. And that's why what Pride was saying is teams don't want him. I would venture to say, I don't think it's too far-fetched. I don't think it's out of pocket. Ben Simmons is one of the biggest busts in the NBA in NBA history at number one. Based on what he's done or hasn't done to this point. Injuries may have played a role, but as soon as he got a big contract, he just said, nah, the hell with it. I'm good. I'm good with just collecting my money. And that's where the Nets are in this situation now. Is Damian, you say no one expected him to be a superstar. When you get drafted number one overall, look at this upcoming draft. You got Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson at the top of the draft. What's going on? When you draft somebody number one overall, go back to Cade Cunningham drafted by the Pistons. When he's drafted at number one, when you draft somebody at number one, do you expect them to be a role player? Hell no. You expect them to be able to move your franchise in championship aspirations. Otherwise, you don't draft him number one. So to say that he was just expected to be a role player, he wasn't expected to be a superstar. Let's rewind and go back to all the major outlets. All the major outlets. How many of the major outlets have said over the last few years that Ben Simmons is a superstar? A lot of them. Now, a lot of us fans, quote unquote, that we get thrown around and by people of the media on Twitter, they call him a superstar. And they say that, well, we're just hating on him because of his skill set. He can't shoot the ball, but he plays great defense and he's a great playmaker. He's not even doing that anymore. I don't know if Ben Simmons actually shoots in practice, Anthony. That's a great question. I don't think so. When they do 5-on-5 scrimmages, I don't know if he shoots in practice. I'm not there every day. John said Kwame Brown 2.0. I think it's even worse than Kwame Brown. Kwame Brown was drafted, and when it was done, it was a bit of a head-scratching move by Jordan and the Wizards. But he was such a raw player. He had come straight out of high school, never played college, so we didn't see what he was like at the college level. Ben Simmons, we saw what he was like at the college level. You saw a lot of things that NBA front offices were like, okay, if he can develop this or develop that, like, he can be good. Kwame Brown was just a raw prospect that, dang near 7 feet tall. And the league was so much different then. It was starting to transition away from the big men, albeit slowly. But I think this is a bigger situation than Kwame Brown because Ben Simmons didn't have as much hype as some of the other number one picks of recent memory. But from his first year or two, from his first couple years in the NBA, the hype that was surrounding him, and he's the next superstar. He's the next guy that's going to help put 76ers on the map, along with Joel Embiid. And then once he gets that, even you could see it leading up to that before he got that contract. You could see that, okay, he needs to work on his shot. Didn't work on it in the offseason. Wasn't really concerned about it. As soon as he gets that big contract, he essentially gives up and says, all right, I got my bag. I'm done. I'm good. I got my money. So now the Nets are in a situation that you've got him, you've got Kevin Durant, and you've got Kyrie Irving. And one of the other topics I was going to talk about today is just the Nets situation and Kyrie Irving, and not necessarily the personal stuff that's going on off the court, but how much of a loss are the Nets in right now without having those guys on the court? If you're the Nets, where do the Nets go from here? And I want to pose this question to everybody that's watching. Where do the Brooklyn Nets go from here? Ben Simmons, Pride mentioned that second round pick is all that's being offered because teams are seeing what Ben Simmons is not what he is and what he is not right now. He's a guy that's going through the motions. He doesn't care. Oh, my knee's sore. I don't want to play tonight. I can't play tonight. And then when he is on the court, he doesn't have that dog. He doesn't have that dog mentality in him. He's not attacking the basket. His entire just everything about him, his whole makeup. All the other NBA teams are going, nope, that ain't it. I don't know who this Ben Simmons is compared to the one that was come out of LSU, drafted number 1 overall, but this ain't the same guy. And we don't want that one. So the Nets are stuck. They still got a couple of years left on that deal. But let's say hypothetically, what moves would you make if you're in decision-making process for the Brooklyn Nets right now? John says he trades KD in 3 or 4 legit player deal and a draft pick. I would kind of go one step further. If you can get a 3-team deal involved, fantastic. So if you're the Nets, what I do, I tell everybody, hey, we're listening to offers for KD and see what teams can give you the most draft picks. I know Brooklyn and the whole area of New York, the mentality is flipped to where it's all about win now, get the big stars. Look at the New York Knicks. It's all about, we got to get the big stars. How many times in free agency are they like, oh, they're going to go get Zion. Oh, they're going to go get KD. Oh, they're going to get LeBron. Because that's what New York, the mentality, unfortunately, from a fan perspective in the media, is to win now. It's one of the biggest markets in the United States. And that's where the Nets and the Knicks are sitting in right now. So that's what the Nets have done twice, and it's failed twice. They went all in to go get Garnett and Pierce and way past their prime, and they gave off a bunch of draft picks to do it. If I'm the Nets, you find the best deal that might get you, it might return, a young piece that you can build the team around, but it's got to be centered around draft picks. That's how you build successful franchises in the NBA. It's not going to be, we're going to go get KD. KD is a superstar that can bring in other stars. Look at how he elevated the Golden State Warriors, who were already good, really good, and upgraded them to damn near unstoppable. Almost. So if you're the Nets, you got to look for the best move that's going to get you the most draft picks. I would try to get draft picks for this year. Try to find teams that are going to give you draft picks for this year. Because not only can the Nets then utilize probably the bad draft pick they're going to get, or I should say the good draft pick. Bad in the standings, good in the draft standings. Try to find the best opportunity to get draft picks. That's how you win. That's how you build in the NBA. That would be very interesting, Damian. I don't think it's likely because the Nets are going to go, well, we want De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis, or, they'd probably want De'Aaron Fox and draft picks. I don't think the Kings are willing to do that. But for a team that's trying to win or right the ship, I think that's a team where KD's likely going to go if they make a trade. Kings are an interesting they're an interesting story right now. You know, sitting in the play-in position at 7-6. But you look at other teams around the league, because I don't see a scenario where KD gets traded to somebody like the Lakers, because then you'd have to trade either Anthony Davis or Russell Westbrook, and the Nets don't want Russell Westbrook. That doesn't make any sense to have Westbrook, Irving, and Simmons all on the same team. None of that makes sense. Unless they move multiple guys in that scenario, then sure, you can make it work for the year. But if you're the Nets, you got to essentially blow it all up. But don't blow it all up just for the sake of doing it. You've still got some opportunity this year. You've got a lot of talent still on the team. It's not going well. So the Nets have to figure out a scenario to get the most draft picks, ideally for this year, because then you can couple those draft picks, try to move up into the top 5. Ideally, you try to get into the top 2 to get somebody like, hypothetically, Scoot Henderson. I think that'd be a great fit if you can get rid of the rest of the problems that you have on the Brooklyn Nets. Because there's a lot of frustration. There was an article that came out in CBS Sports yesterday around about the Nets and how they have a lot of frustration building around Ben Simmons, his level of play, how available is he. They've already fired Steve Nash, and they were there's talks that everybody's being shopped. So it's already building there. If you're the Nets, try to figure out a way to get as much draft capital as possible. Until then, you kind of just got to make it work. Hopefully you're going to get Kyrie back on Sunday. If they don't get Kyrie back when he's supposed to be available again on Sunday, coming back from his, we'll call it leave, for at least 5 games, which has now turned out to be 8 games or more. And he's missing tonight's game too. So if you don't get Kyrie back on Sunday, I think bigger questions are going to come out about, is Kyrie just done with the Nets? They're not. I doubt they're going to cut him. They're not going to do that because they're not going to want to eat all that money unless they really just don't want to deal with him. If they don't want to deal with him, I would not be surprised to see them just cut ties, maybe have a buyout or something, and just say, hey, just kick rocks, man. Get out of here. We don't want to deal with you anymore. If I'm the Nets, I want to try to get some value from that. But I don't know how many teams are going to line up for Kyrie Irving either. Not named the Los Angeles Lakers. I don't see it. I just don't. But we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We're going to talk about some other NBA news. We're going to talk about Major League Baseball. The MVP voting is happening tonight, and we're going to discuss who should be the AL MVP, Aaron Judge or Shohei Ohtani. So we'll talk about that in just a second when we come back from this break, as soon as I can find the commercial. There it is. We'll be right back.
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we're making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays. Network. All sports, all plays. Network. We on top of our game. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays.
What did you say?
I said Kobe Bean Bryant has been overrated ever since he passed away.
Now, I'd say they could lose about 4, but I don't see them losing 5. You know what I mean?
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays.
This is the Fox D Streaming Network. Register to come on our channel at foxdnetwork.com.
All right, welcome back to ASAP in the Morning here on the All Sports All Plays Network. We are just about 1 hour into the show, and we've had some great conversation. We're live this morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and live on the Fox D Network, Tiki Live, Roku, and Apple TV. So let's change some gears and let's talk a little bit of baseball. I think one of the biggest news stories that have come out, I do want to get to the MVP and the Cy Young, just kind of mention those a little bit. But the Major League Baseball has been announced that it's going to investigate. They announced this morning they're investigating the New York Yankees and the New York Mets over some possible, what they call improper communication regarding Aaron Judge. As everyone knows, Aaron Judge is a free agent, and there are a number of different suitors that are looking to acquire his services. And a team that really could use him would be the New York Mets. But what this article goes over is at the request of the MLBPA, they're talking about owners discussing amongst one another about essentially what this comes down to. The Yankees and the Mets talked to each other and said, hey, we won't march on your turf if you don't try to come after any of our guys, is kind of what that comes out to. There's a lot of vague comments and stuff coming out about this. But that's essentially what this is. I think it's kind of hilarious that the Yankees are like, hey, could you do us a favor and not go after Judge? To your crosstown competition, who you wouldn't even play unless it's in the World Series. But it's just very interesting to me that this article from SNY, it cited Mets sources and stated Steinbrenner and Cohen, quote, enjoy a mutually respectful relationship and do not expect to upend that with a high-profile bidding war, end quote. So supposedly there's been communication between Steinbrenner and Cohen about, hey, we're not going to get into a bidding war if you don't go after Judge, or if you don't kind of drive up the price, there won't be an issue. I just find it hilarious that this is even happening. You got crosstown teams. They won't even play each other and very rarely in the regular season. You won't really play them until the World Series. That's what the open market's for. If Aaron Judge wants to communicate with teams and drive up the price for his services, that had tough. Yankees, that's tough. Who cares? If the Mets aren't going to do it, the Dodgers are going to do it. The Giants have been in conversation about a team that's going to try to get Aaron Judge. There's a short list of teams that are going to be opening up the checkbook for Aaron Judge. And so as this kind of story develops, we're going to talk about it. I'd love to get Frankie on here at some point to talk about it as this kind of stuff develops, but kind of using that price point is going to change a little bit. especially if Judge ends up getting the AL MVP, which is announced tonight. So the AL and NL MVP, that award is given out tonight. And of course, in the American League, you're talking about Aaron Judge versus Shohei Ohtani. That's the conversation that's being happened right now. So the question I pose to you, who should win the AL MVP? John says it's Judge. Talking about Ohtani's a good player, but he would put Goldschmidt from the NL over Ohtani. This AL MVP scenario, that is, the AL MVP scenario is, what do you value? The most valuable player on a team or who has the best season? Those things aren't necessarily the same. So if you're looking at the best season, that person essentially gets the MVP. Who has the best season on a winning team? That's usually where a lot of these awards go. Sandy Alcantara from Miami and the Marlins getting the NL Cy Young, extremely well deserved. Those are usually outliers because the Marlins weren't very good, but he was far and away the best, I think the best pitcher in the National League over this last season. He had I think more complete games. I can't remember what it was this morning. I was studying up for the show. It's a lot of information to take in. I think he had 9 complete games this year, which the last time anybody had even more than 2 in a season, you got to go a few years back because it's not common anymore. It's not common for players to have complete games. The old adage of having your starter go 7, 8 innings, setup man in the 8th, closer in the 9th, that adage doesn't happen anymore. Usually your starter, if you can get 5 innings out of him and he hits a pitch count, you're going to pull him and start utilizing your bullpen. So the fact that Sandy Alcantara did that, he was far and away the best pitcher in the National League this year. But generally, these awards go to, like MVP and Cy Young, go to some of the best players on winning teams. So that's the question surrounding AL MVP. Should it be Aaron Judge breaking the American League home run record with 62 home runs, beating Roger Maris's 61? Or is it Shohei Ohtani, who's a generational player in baseball? We don't see guys that play 2 ways as regularly as he does. And that in the fact that he produces on both sides, both as a pitcher and as a hitter. Do you value that when it comes to the MVP votes? That's always the big discussion. You can kind of go either way. I think if you're talking about most valuable player to a team, you would go with Ohtani. But the season that Judge just had, and the fact that he did it in a Yankees uniform, and the fact that the Yankees had a much better season than the Angels, I don't think it'll be unanimous, but I think it'll be an overwhelming favorite that Judge will win the AL MVP. And now that's going to drive up his price. I don't think it's going to drive it up that much more than what it already is. He's far and away, I think, the best available free agent, non-pitching free agent in Major League Baseball this offseason. But I think it'll drive up his price a little bit. So this investigation that Major League Baseball is doing into the Mets and the Yankees about they don't want, hey, don't drive up the price on us and get us into a bidding war. Tough. What's the way you use it? Tough cookies. I think I said that right. There's another way to say it too, but I'm not going to say it live on air. Tough. That's the point of free agency. The player is going to try to get the most amount of money possible, the best value possible for a contract. And the teams want to try to have the best team-friendly contract as possible. And you got to compromise between the two. For somebody like Aaron Judge, you're just going to have to pony up and pay him. So if the Yankees are worried about the Mets driving up the price, go look on the West Coast, because the Dodgers are just sitting there waiting right now. I have a feeling that if it does get in a bidding war, I don't think you have to worry about the Mets. I think you got to worry about the Dodgers. John Suggs said Judge is going to Seattle. That's a big dark horse. I don't see that whatsoever for multiple reasons. Seattle has rarely been known to open up the checkbook to pay that much, to pay somebody like Judge to come in. They've got a few. They just traded for Teoscar Hernandez yesterday from the Blue Jays, giving up a cup. Correct. Yeah, the Padres. I don't think the Padres would go after Judge because they just went all in with Soto and they've already got Machado, and you got to figure out the Tatis situation. How's that all going to play out? But the Padres would be a team. I don't see it happening, but I think they could be an outside team that would be a team that will open up to at least make it a conversation. And this is kind of what I'm getting at, John, is that they did open the checkbook up for Castillo, and it was such a huge deal because Seattle rarely does that. So the fact that they do that, and they've got they're talking about potentially trading Jesse Winker. You've got Mitch Haniger, who's a free agent. So are they going to try to bring him back? And I'm missing somebody else. His name escapes me right now, but he's been bouncing back and forth between the major league level and AAA. Just been because he was struggling at the major league level. But Seattle is a team. They're going all in, but I don't think they're a team that's going to go after Judge. I really don't. The big teams with the big payrolls and the owners that are going to spend money. Giants have been brought in there because Judge is from that area. So all the teams that have been spending big, Dodgers, Mets, Yankees, and Giants. This would be hilarious if Judge goes to someone like the Chicago Cubs. I think they got some other bigger fish to fry. There is rumor that I saw on Twitter yesterday that they're going after Cody Bellinger potentially. There's talks that they want to go after one of the shortstops. They got to talk about, are they going to bring back Wilson Contreras? Because they didn't trade him at the deadline when they would have got the most value from that. But now he's a free agent. So if he doesn't go back to the Cubs, you essentially just lost all on any potential return you could have gotten. But yes, Damian, the Giants, because he is from that area, I don't know if he would be willing to take a pay cut to do that. But the big teams, Mets, Yankees, Dodgers, those teams are going to be the ones that'll open up the checkbook to bring in somebody like Aaron Judge. And there's a few other big names that potentially could also find some landing spots here very soon. And that is these shortstops, Correa, Trey Turner, Xander Bogaerts. Where all these guys gonna sign and gonna fall. Without doing a deep dive into doing all the research, that'd be very hard to try to predict right now. The Tigers. There's no way at this point that they're going to spend that much money, because I will take you back to, you mentioned Cabrera. Cabrera was already on the team. He was just coming off the Triple Crown. And he was brought in by trade. And since Mr. Illich passed away number of years ago, his son has taken over, and his son is the same penny pincher that Mr. I used to be earlier in his ownership of the Tigers. They just went out. They could have had Carlos Correa. They could have had Carlos Correa last year. Everything was lining up to have Carlos Correa, but the Tigers weren't willing to spend the money to even get him. So there's no way that they're going to go get Aaron Judge. None whatsoever. They got to figure out how to get out of this Javi Baez contract first. Hopefully he can turn it around, or I would hope, personally, I would much rather the Tigers, go after another shortstop. I'm not saying they got to go after Carlos Correa now, because it would be very interesting, I think, if they went and finally got him in. But I think they got to go after another infielder. They got to address the third base. They got to address Austin Meadows was traded in, and he never played. He was hurt. Then he had this weird thing of vertigo. Then he had COVID. The Tigers are a mess right now, but Scott Harris being brought in from the Giants and helped build the championship Cubs team, I think they're taking a step in the right direction, but there's no way they're opening the checkbook that big to bring in Judge when they have so many other holes that they need to fill at the major league level and in the farm system. So there's too many other things right there. Honestly, they need to go after third baseman. They need to upgrade at catcher. They need to upgrade at second base. I mean, there's a lot. They have a lot. So John and I are on the same page. There's no way Detroit goes after them. The Angels, I doubt them, because they've got money tied up in Ohtani and Trout, and they've shown that they've just shown a ton of incompetency. I don't think Judge is going to want to do that. He's going to want to go somewhere where he can get paid the most amount of money and also have a chance to win. So I think he's going to stay away from most of the teams. That's why I only narrow it down to 3 or 4 teams: Yankees, Mets, Dodgers, Giants. Yes. Dansby Swanson is a guy that we talked about yesterday on the show. He's a player that may end up going back. He did decide to decline the Braves offer. He's in a really good spot right now because he's not only kind of in the same boat as Carlos Correa, but as far as like age, he's got a ring. Just kind of where they're at in the top of the market. I think the first one to probably go is Trey Turner, and then maybe Swanson goes next. I think Bogarts and Correa hold out for a while. I think Correa's going to do what he did last year, which was he had the opportunity. He had the opportunity to go to Detroit. He said no. He had other offers on the table, and he's like, I'm going to wait. And he literally waited until after the lockout ended. And then he's like, I'm going to go to Minnesota. And everyone's like, what the? Where did that come from? So I think Carlos Correa is going to wait. Again, he's one of those guys that's going to wait to see what does Turner get, what does Bogarts get, what does Judge get, because he's all about getting paid as much as possible right now. And I don't blame him. As a player, your window is this big in comparison to the history of the game. And someone's going to beat out your contract and one up you. If he signs a record-setting deal, we see it a lot in the NFL now. Guy signs a record-setting deal, the very next guy leapfrogs him and gets another record-setting deal. That's what contracts are all about right now. A lot of the top guys are just trying to one up and get the biggest contracts possible. And I think Correa's in that conversation. He's going to wait to see what a few guys do and then say, okay, say it's Xander Bogaerts of the remaining three, out of Swanson, Turner, and Bogaerts. Say Bogaerts gets the top contract of the three. Let's just hypothetical. Correa's going to go, okay, see what this guy got? I want this. And it's not even going to be just bigger. I think it's going to be this. This guy's getting, 40 million. That's about how much I want. I want no less than 38 million. That'll be the conversation that Carlos Correa has. So I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. He's going to wait and make his decisions then. There's a lot of great free agents that are still available. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch that all play out. So let's kind of shift some gears a little bit. And we're going to get into kind of touch back a little bit on some NBA. Because there was something that, so Pride kind of like took us down in a rabbit hole a little bit. Love him to death. But he had to get that off his chest about Ben Simmons. So of course that brought on the conversation that we were going to have about the Nets. So where do they go? So NBA, last night, Steph Curry drops a 50-burger on the road in Phoenix, and they still lose. At this point, Verlander returns to Houston. I think it's possible, especially given the season that Verlander just had, winning the AL Cy Young after he didn't pitch. He had Tommy John surgery, didn't really pitch much in 2020, didn't pitch all of last season, and now this season to come out and lead the league in ERA and WHIP. I think he had 18 wins. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I think it was 18 wins. I don't know if it's an interesting spot right now where he's at in his career. He's 38 years old and he's still pitching like he's in his prime. I don't know if he goes back to Houston. But I don't know where else he would go. Because I know he's going to want to try to win. There are honestly a very small handful of teams that are going to be in that conversation for Justin Verlander. Houston's probably the front runner because they would pay him about market value and make it a shorter term contract, and he has a chance to win a World Series. Team that's been in 4 of the last 6 World Series in Houston. I'd say that's a pretty good track record if you want to try to win a World Series again. Other teams that are trying to make pushes for the playoffs, pushes for postseason, if you are going, let's say the White Sox. The White Sox were a big disappointment this last year. Tony La Russa looked like he was coaching from the Stone Age of baseball in this new era, and it crashed and burned horribly. The White Sox going after Justin Verlander would be a massive mistake. And it's not because of Justin Verlander. Yes, he's at 38. We can't expect that he's going to be like Tom Brady, who going into now, 45 years old is still producing, or was until last year, producing at a high level. if you expect that Verlander's going to sign, let's say, a 2-year, 3-year deal, if you sign that deal, and this could be, I'm using the White Sox as an example because that was the comment that was made. The White Sox are not in a position right now to make a serious run at the World Series. So for them to pay the amount of money that you're going to have to pay to get Justin Verlander, and couple that with the where you are right now as a franchise, I think it's a massive mistake. You're setting your team back. You're helping out your pitching staff, yes, but you're not in a position to win, and that's what Verlander wants. The Phillies might be an interesting scenario because they've got to figure out if they're going to bring back Zach Eflin. There's talks that the Phillies are going to try to go after some of the big name infielders. I saw Trey Turner. I saw Trey Turner was kind of in conversation with the Phillies as far as like rumors that are being thrown out there, and they're rampant, by the way, right now. They could use a bit of an upgrade over Bryson Stott. And not to say that he's bad. It's just when you have an opportunity to go get a big name free agent in a city like Philadelphia that has shown that they're willing to go spend money, that's a possibility. They could try to bring in Verlander to help their pitching staff. But yeah, Verlander, if he does a 1-year deal around this, $33 million, I could see him going to a team that would have potential to win a World Series. I just don't think the White Sox are it. He could also, at the end of this season, see how his body's feeling, see how he's responding. If he feels like he can still go another couple of years, I could see him signing like a 2-year deal to the Yankees are a team that's been rumored to be going after him, and all the usual suspects are going to be in the market for Justin Verlander. I also could see if Verlander looks at this year and goes, hey, I got everything I wanted to. I got my rings. He is going to be a Hall of Famer. It just depends on what team is he going into the Hall of Fame with. He could, and I don't think this is going to happen, but he could hypothetically choose that, all right, I'm going to wind down my career. I want to go back home, and I could see him signing with Detroit. I'm not saying it's likely, and I know Detroit's not in a spot to even compete for the playoffs right now, let alone a World Series. But I think that's a possibility that could also happen, is if Verlander decides that, hey, I got my World Series rings. I got AL Cy Young for the 3rd time in my career. I've made a big comeback. I want to go back. I want to go back to Detroit. I think that's a possibility. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's possible. But there's a lot of teams right there. I want to see where Jacob deGrom goes. We had talked about this a little bit yesterday. I want to see where Jacob deGrom goes. He's going to command a lot, and deservedly so. He knows what his market value is. He knows that what the level Scherzer's getting is about the price that he wants to get paid. Yeah, Devin and I are kind of in the same boat here. Contenders, Yankees, Boston, Mets, Toronto would be an interesting one. Texas has been throwing themselves out there as wanting to spend money to get themselves into contention. That's a team that I would look at as kind of like maybe a dark horse potentially. But yeah, I said that's the 2 routes he's got to look at. If he thinks he can still compete and still replicate what he just did this year, I think he signs like a 2-year deal with one of a contender. But if he decides that, all right, this has been fun, this has been great, I want to go back to Detroit. He's still connected to the city. His family still loves it. Maybe he goes back. But I think I'm in that same boat. I'm in that same boat with Devin. I think he's got two different routes to pick. There's a small handful of contenders that he could go to, or he chooses that, hey, we're going to wind it down and go to Detroit. So, talked about free agents, talked about a lot of that kind of stuff. We kind of got sidetracked because we were going to talk a little bit of NBA. But I want to hear from you guys college basketball. All right, I want to talk a little bit of college basketball because if you watched last night, Gonzaga, they traveled to Austin, Texas to play number 11 Texas Longhorns, number 2 Gonzaga. That game, I was blown away. I was blown away seeing how this game transpired. And it wasn't relatively close. 93-74. Texas starts 3-0. Man, Tyrese Hunter had himself a game. Only 26 minutes, but scored 26 points. And I want to, is Texas for real? You know, is Texas for real, or is this just a early season blunder for Gonzaga? Because Gonzaga, they started off. Well, Gonzaga hasn't. They beat Michigan State, albeit by 1. So this is their first loss of the year. But now they've got a huge matchup on Sunday. They got number 4 Kentucky. They got number 4 Kentucky now on Sunday at 7:30 on ESPN. This has always been the conversation with Gonzaga, is that over the last, 20 years, when Gonzaga first kind of started making some of these runs with Mark Few as head coach, they've actually gone out and they've actually started scheduling some quality opponents. And now I think this is really going to be the test of the mettle for the Zags. Because there's conversation of Gonzaga with the landscape of how college sports is kind of being shifted now. There's conversation that some of these big powers could move into bigger conferences. Gonzaga likely won't move from the West Coast Conference. But now they're scheduling harder opponents. You had Michigan State, which was a thriller of a game. Michigan State, that close loss and the win, and the recent win they just had, was that last night? Yeah, last night against Kentucky in double overtime. Yeah, you guys are already talking about it. 2 nights ago, Tuesday night. But Michigan State, massively underrated right now to open up the college season. I would not be surprised, especially with how close of a loss that was to Gonzaga, and now with the big win against Kentucky this week. Don't be surprised to see them jump into, likely the top, I would say the top 15 already in the country. It's been a great start for Michigan State. But for Gonzaga now, they had a close game against Michigan State. I know Devin's my guy. We went to school together, and he's a big Michigan State fan. We always go have this back and forth. Of course, I'm, Michigan fan, if you can't tell. But hey, you got to give credit where credit's due. All right. Michigan State's having a hell of a year. Michigan, they play tonight, and they're in the Legends Classic out west. They're playing Arizona State. They did not look good against Eastern Michigan in Detroit. I know there was a lot of stuff surrounding that game. Imani Bates was going to go to Michigan State, went to Memphis. opened in the transfer portal conversation. He might go back to Michigan State, ends up going to Eastern, which is a really interesting scenario for him. Big name program or big name recruit goes to a really small school like Eastern Michigan, gets himself in a lot of legal trouble. NBA's watching for that, by the way. But then he comes out and Michigan didn't have an answer for him or his backcourt mate. I forget his name off the top of my head, but I was tweeting about it during the game when that happened. Michigan they look like they did last year. Severely inconsistent. They lack the consistency of the outside shooting. And it's okay to run through Hunter Dickinson, but when they double down, you got to have guys that can shoot from the outside. Michigan struggles with that. So we always go back and forth about Michigan and Michigan State. But hey, like I said, credit where credit's due. Michigan State has had a hell of a start. Yeah, Imani's a lock for MAC Player of the Year. And I said this on Twitter during the Eastern Michigan game. Imani Bates, if he averages less than 30 a game in the MAC, I'll be severely disappointed. Because he's going to be by far and away the best athlete on the floor with the best skill set. And I know he was running on a lot of adrenaline and emotion in that game because hometown Detroit, there was a lot of buzz. A lot of people were rooting for the upset. You could hear it and feel it in the crowd. And he was running off that emotion, kind of came back to bite him a little bit. And he was taking some really bad shots, but he was making them. If Imani doesn't average at least 30 a game in the Mid-American Conference season, I'll be disappointed because he is easily the best. Yeah. He's easily the best player in that conference. Easily the best player in that conference. Not even close. If he went to Michigan State, he could be in conversation as being one of the best players in the Big Ten. But he goes to the MAC. There's not much, no disrespect. I went to Western Michigan. I went to a school in the MAC. Devin and I went there. The competition level from the Big Ten to the MAC is completely different. Imani should eat regularly against the opposition in the MAC. But to circle back to the original point, Gonzaga's schedule, they played Michigan State. They just played on the road in a true road game against Texas and lost. They've got Kentucky. Now, if you look at the rest of their non-conference schedule, December 2nd, you're at Baylor. And then you play against Washington on December 9th. Fast forward a couple more weeks. They're playing against number 18 Alabama on December 17th. And that essentially rounds out their non-conference schedule. They got a bunch of Montana, Northern Illinois, Kent State, Eastern Oregon, and then they get into the conference slate. They do play at BYU in January 12th, which BYU is actually in their conference now, which is kind of weird. But if we look ahead, to I'm just bringing this up real quick. Because I've said it before. When I get solo and I'm making banners and trying to interact with people, sometimes you got to take a second to, I can't go to a bunch of commercial breaks. We don't have that many commercials yet. But if you want to sponsor ASAP Network, you can DM the show and we can get you set up because we got a lot of followers on various different platforms, and it'll definitely help out the show. But Gonzaga, I know John says Bama's going to beat Gonzaga. Is Gonzaga now in trouble this year? Or is this going to be, hey, we're going to play harder competition because they know they're going to win their conference. They know they're going to make the NCAA tournament. Is this, let's take our lumps early in the year to be ready come playoff time, NCAA tournament time? I applaud Gonzaga for doing this. They're not going to be unbeatable the whole time, the whole way through. We've seen them try to do that in previous years where they don't really play anybody in the non-conference. And then they stumble against the 8 seed, the 9 seed. They stumble in the second, third round of the tournament. But if you play and schedule teams in your non-conference slate and put your guys into situations where you're playing in under the bright lights, I think you're setting them up to find out what you're really made of, and you're setting them up for success later on. Even though this loss against Texas should be a really good club this year. But if, say, for instance, their season falls apart, we could look back in that season and go, well, that was a bad loss by Gonzaga. That could happen. But I think when you schedule these harder schools, the better competition, you're setting yourself up. You're going to take lumps early in the year. And if we know anything about college basketball, where you're ranked in early November doesn't mean jack compared to where you're ranked in March. It doesn't mean jack to where you're ranked in March. Because if they take a couple of lumps, say they get beat by Kentucky, I mean, Baylor's number 5. That's going to be a big, that's going to be a big game. Say they lose against Kentucky, Baylor, and Bama. So they've got 4 losses. And let's say those are their only 4 losses they have. They run the table in their conference. If they have only those 4 losses and all those teams are ranked teams at the end of the year, that's not a bad thing. You're still only going to have 4 losses. You probably would be somewhere on the 1 line or 2 line, depending on how the rest of the country plays out. You're still going to be one of the top 16 seeds, essentially. Or top 8 seeds, I should say. So, yeah, and they'll still be fine. Gonzaga's still going to be fine, but this could bode to how they stack up against some of this competition come tournament time. So that's something they got to figure out. They had 3 different players scoring double figures. Timmy had 18 and 9. Strother had 13 and 6. Bolton had 11 and 3. But they just kind of got dominated. They just kind of got dominated from the get. They had a lot of turnovers. 20 turnovers? Yeah, 20 turnovers on the road. That's tough. Don't shoot well from 3. 9 of 19. When you only get 10 assists as a team, you get they won the rebound battle barely. But they didn't necessarily look comfortable, and Texas came ready to play. Did Iowa win the other night? That's a good question. I did not see if Iowa won the other night. But yeah, you said Devin mentioned, and Bama, MSU plays Bama as well. I think that's going to be a fun game. Bama's been a fun team to watch in college basketball the last couple of years. So I think that's going to be a really good matchup coming up. But for Gonzaga, this isn't bad. If you can win one of these games against your ranked opponents, Kentucky, and that's at home. That game is at home too, against Kentucky this Sunday. That'll be a fun game to watch, I think. That's at Sunday, 7:30 on ESPN. But I give credit to Gonzaga. He said, Davey said Gonzaga sounded like the Bulls right now. We're not even going to talk about Chicago Bulls yet. That's a Mike on the mic special. We'll let Mike talk about Chicago sports. But if you do like Chicago sports, that's a show you can check out. Mike also works alongside me on the Overtime Heroics Chicago team, something that was newly launched. So if you're into Chicago sports and want in-depth coverage on that, check out Overtime Heroics Chicago. But I think Gonzaga will be okay. All right, I'm going to open it up to some questions, and I'll do the best I can because we're kind of near the end of that show. We're at 11:35 here on the East Coast, and it's just me today. It's just Craig Campbell solo on ASAP in the morning. No Ray Cruz today. We may be on tomorrow. We're not really 100% sure yet. I may or may not be available. Ray won't be available. So we'll do our best. We'll see if we can get some to cover for the show tomorrow. If not, we'll be back Monday. But I'm going to take this quick second to plug the All Sports All Plays social media outlets because we are live this morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and on Roku, Tiki Live, and the Fox D Network. But you can check us out on all the different social media platforms. YouTube, you can search ASAP Sports Network. We're nearing 1,000 subscribers, so thank you to everybody that subs to that channel. That helps us out a lot. On Facebook, you can search at All Sports All Plays. We're at 3,500, crowding 4,000 followers on Facebook. So thank you to everybody that follows the platform there. On Twitter at ASAP Network 1 and on Twitch at ASAP Network. Hit the like, share, comment, subscribe, interact. Hey, we got the chat right here. And we'll chat with everybody throughout the show to get your takes on the latest in the world of sports. As it stands right now, NFL Coach of the Year and MVP, who are you selecting? NFL Coach of the Year. I think if you're talking about 1 week, hey, Jeff Saturday, if he can keep this up, I know he's taking a lot of heat. I've given a lot of flack to that move too. I know he's interim head coach. I know the way that this has played out for the Indianapolis Colts right now. It's been a very unique scenario, but no, that's my joke pick. I think Coach of the Year, man, my front runner's got to be. It's got to. Damn, that's a tough one. I would say it's got to be McDaniel in Miami or in Philadelphia, Sirianni. Miami or Philadelphia, I would say, for Coach of the Year. Philadelphia, looking at their schedule at the beginning of the year, I had predicted them to only have 2, maybe 3 losses at most, just because of how weak I thought their schedule would be and how, I thought the rest of their division would play out. I didn't think Washington would be any good. I didn't certainly expect the Giants to be any good. They've been a big surprise. I think that's another one too. If I were to, I would. There's 3 really good candidates right now. 4 really good candidates. You got 4 really good candidates, in my opinion. You got Dable with the Giants. I think you got Minnesota. You got to look at them and how they've performed. They're 8-1. Philadelphia. There's a lot of really good ones. But I would have to narrow it down probably to Philadelphia. I'm going to change my answer. Philadelphia or New York Giants. What Dable's been able to do. Yeah, that's what I said. I'm changing my answer. I'm on record saying that, so that's fine. Dable, what he's been able to do, the fact that they were, I think a lot of people only expected them to have maybe, less than 5 wins. So what it's a nice feeling to have a first-year head coach come in and actually change the direction of the franchise. Must be nice. We don't know what that means in Detroit. So we don't know what that means. So I think Brian Daboll's probably one of the front runners. McDaniel in Miami, Saleh in New York with the Jets. The fact that the Jets are tied for second in the division. Yes, Mike McDaniel taking over in Miami. I think that's a big one. And you mentioned MVP. MVP right now, this early in the season. I think I'm going to stick with the Giants. And I know MVP, it gets thrown around to quarterbacks all the time. Unfortunately, that's what the MVP award has become. Who's the best quarterback on one of the best teams? That's the MVP. Not so fast. I'm going to go with somebody else. I'm actually with Damian here. I'm going to say Saquon. Saquon leads the team in rushing, receiving. He's been a huge cog to that machine to make it work. I think Saquon's one of the front runners. And my other thought, John, went to Justin Jefferson. What he's been able to do for that offense in Minnesota, he's been a huge reason why they're 8-1. But I would say if I had to pick a MVP right now, it'd have to be Saquon. Just would not only have the Giants been overperforming, sitting at 7-2, and they're 3-1 on the road. They're 4-0 against the conference. He has been insane. It's been wild to see. He's on paces that are going to blow away records. So I think that's going to be a fun. I had Minnesota early in the year picking to win the division anyway, but I didn't expect to see somebody like Justin Jefferson have the type of season that he's having. So I don't think you can go wrong with either one of those picks. Justin Tucker is MP. Justin Tucker has been the most valuable kicker in the league for ever since he stepped foot on the field. He's been, in my opinion, the best kicker in the league since his first season. He definitely helps out. I think Lamar Jackson's having a really good season too. That Ravens team is playing at a much different level than they were earlier in the season. They went out and got Roquan Smith. They brought in, they finally got, I think, the running back situation figured out with Kenyon Drake. He's actually looked like a really good compliment. The Ravens look good right now. They look really good. Could throw in Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is having a phenomenal season too in Dallas. Dallas, I know they're not even sitting at 6-3. They're not really where they would expect to be. They think they want to be at the top of that division. I know they certainly didn't expect to have the Giants have as good of a season as they had. Most improved, I would probably give to Geno Smith. And it's because of just how this team, they got rid of Russell Wilson. They traded him to Denver to get, Drew Lock, Noah Fant, and a slew of draft picks. I know we've talked about it on this show that Seattle was not a team that we expected to have more than 5 wins. Another one of those teams that would be at the bottom of the conference. But the way that Geno Smith has been playing and the way that this team in general has been playing, sitting at 6-4, they're leading the NFC West. By a half a game over San Francisco. if Seattle can win the West, I would venture to say it depends on who their matchup is. I know I was just talking so highly of Minnesota. I think they could knock off Minnesota, but it's not going to be easy either way because you got to go on the road and you got to take down a team that both of these teams right now look like they're on pace to have maybe 2 or 3 losses max. That's just the pace that they're on. Philadelphia, they showed some weakness on Monday night. The Commanders showed the recipe for how to beat them. Control the time of possession. You got to run the football effectively, and you've got to primetime Kirk versus regular Kirk. Yeah, there's a big difference. And that's something that Kirk Cousins is going to have to just prove everybody wrong. Going to have to prove everybody wrong in order to get that off of his back. But to this question, can Seattle knock off Minnesota or Philadelphia in the playoffs? I think they can. It's got to be, you got to have a few things go your way. Geno Smith, you got to hope that Kenneth Walker III can stay healthy and continue to have the impact that he's had already early this year. A lot of teams that have been searching for running back help, they're really kicking themselves right now, aren't they? Because there's even conversation that I think it was Detroit was in a position to draft Kenneth Walker III. And a lot of teams skipped over him because of health concerns and all that. There, you look at how that's playing out. A lot of teams are kicking themselves for not drafting Kenneth Walker. Justin Fields. I think you're asking about for MVP, right? And I think that's what you're saying, Damian. Justin Fields has had a hell of a season. Mike and I were just talking about this yesterday on the show. Justin Fields right now is the best, arguably the best quarterback that the Bears have ever had step foot on the field from an athletic standpoint. He is the best quarterback they've ever seen step foot on the field for the Bears. Athletically, he does things that make him a really tough matchup, that make him really tough to game plan for. He's obviously got to work on decision making. He's got to work on that. Part of that could be with play calling too. I've seen it happen a lot with Fields to where as soon as his first read isn't there, he's immediately tucking the ball and looking to run. When he tried to do it later in the game against Detroit, where he would escape a sack, 2 sacks, especially at the last play of the game, escape 2-3 sacks potentially. And then he's looking down the field. But generally, this is why it takes a team to win games in the NFL. The Bears don't have any receivers. They can't get separation. And the Lions defense is not that good. They're really bad. And when teams know you're going to throw, it's up to Justin Fields. Athletically, yes, 100%. And that was to the original point. Justin Fields right now, athletically, is the best player they've seen at the quarterback position ever. I'm not going to go as far to say that he's better than Jay Cutler's body of work. He's got a long way to go. And I'm always of the mind when it comes to judging quarterbacks in the NFL, you've got to give them a couple years to develop. Now, if Justin Fields is in the same spot next year as he is this year, with the same limitations, shows little to no improvement, then I'd be worried. Then I would be worried as a Chicago fan. But if he can develop his ability to read the defense, get to recognize the coverages, And that happens pre-snap. If you can eliminate things at the line before you even snap the ball, you can have better decision making. But I think that conversation is still kind of to be determined. He has the potential to easily be the best quarterback in Bears history. Easily. He has that potential. So I wouldn't put Justin Fields in the MVP conversation because you have to look at they're 3-7. He's the whole reason their offense goes right now, because between him and now Herbert's on the IR for a couple weeks, or I think it was 2 months. I think we said yesterday on the show. They got no receivers. You got Cole Kmet at tight end. They got some pieces. They got a long way to go before Justin Fields is in that MVP conversation. Now, if Chicago was sitting at just above 500, I think you have a much stronger argument. But records definitely play into that. Christian McCaffrey. This comment, I mentioned this when that trade was made on this show. If you utilize him properly, he's extremely dangerous. And I think the best place for him to fall was San Francisco, because you have a run scheme that benefits him. You have multiple guys that can run the football. You've got Deebo Samuel, who's a Swiss Army knife of a player on offense. Wide receiver, throw him in motion, put him in the backfield at running back, and you have a running game with a true fullback in Juszczyk that makes Christian McCaffrey look that much better. And I know his injury history turned a lot of teams off, but that's because they were expecting likely, and Kittle and Ayuk. You have all these different weapons on San Francisco. If he went to the only other team I think that would have made sense would have been Buffalo, because they also have a lot of weapons. Hypothetically, let's just say Carolina traded him to the LA Rams, who needed a running back, but they don't have any draft picks, so they wouldn't have been able to make the trade. Hypothetically, if if Carolina would have traded CMC to the Rams, we'd be having a much different conversation about Christian McCaffrey. Because the Rams, we've seen that they're struggling on offense. They would have brought in Christian McCaffrey and basically said, hey, we're going to do the exact same thing that Carolina did with you, but we're going to do it here because we've got you a better quarterback. And we need the run game. They don't have running backs that are effective. They don't have the same type of offense and run scheme that a team like San Francisco does. So Christian McCaffrey may have gotten injured already. He would not have looked as good on the field in a Rams uniform as he does with the 49ers. 49ers are the best fit for him. Not only is it him coming home, not only do they have all those different weapons on offense, but you have a run scheme. Shanahan is looking really good in dialing up different plays to get all these guys the ball. The Rams don't have, especially with Cooper Kupp now going on IR, the Rams don't have as many weapons as the 49ers do. So if you throw Christian McCaffrey on the Rams, you're going to stack the box. And you only have one guy to worry about at wide receiver, and that's Cooper Kupp. Higbee's had a good season at tight end, fairly good season. But San Francisco's got so many more weapons that you have to worry about and you have to game plan for. That's why Christian McCaffrey is so much more effective. And I said that right when that trade was made. Christian McCaffrey is going to help put this team over the top. I'm 100% with John Suggs. Nobody wants to play the 49ers in the playoffs. I know they're sitting at 5-4 right now. I know they're second in the division. But their last two games, They played both LA teams. And they've won pretty, I wouldn't say handily. It was a really close game with the Chargers. But since this trade was made, it was right before the Kansas City game. So we're 3 games in. They're 2-1 with Christian McCaffrey. The remaining schedule: Cardinals, Saints, Dolphins, Bucks, Seahawks, and then Commanders, Raiders, Cardinals. I look at that schedule, and assuming that everybody else stays fairly healthy, I look at that schedule and I don't see many losses. I think they could hypothetically split with the Cardinals. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's hypothetical they could split with the Cardinals. The only teams they could potentially lose to, maybe Seattle on the road. Tampa Bay. Hey, post Giselle, Tom Brady's 2-0. He's back. Uh-oh. Mike Hughes.
Hi, Craig.
What's up, buddy?
I'm cold, man. It's cold in this mug.
Yeah, it's extremely cold. This is why I'm glad I live in Florida. So, but it's hey, it's that time of year, man.
Don't flex on me like that. Don't flex on me like that ever again.
Hey, I got room. I got room if you want to come visit.
No, it's not a visit. It's a permanent relocation. But yeah, I heard Justin Field MVP, so I walked out of my second class of the day. Well, actually, I didn't. That's not why, but I just don't like that class. So, thought I'd say hi before you ended the show because I know you're wrapping up soon. But I was questioning. I was listening earlier and I didn't see Pride. Did Pride make an appearance today?
Yeah, for about like 20 minutes.
Mm.
He could jump on for a little bit.
To say?
He apologized to you specifically.
Interesting.
Regarding one Ben Simmons.
You don't say.
Yeah.
Wow.
He apologized to me, to you, to Rob Scott, everybody.
What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive.
What a time to be alive.
Oh, man. It's hot in here. It's cold in here, Craig.
Turn that heater on.
I just did. You gotta wait. You gotta wait like 10 minutes because if you turn it on when you first get in, you're just gonna die.
So hey, while we're wrapping up the show, and let's give a quick shout out to all the shows that you're a part of. And hey, where can people find more about Mike Hughes and Mike on the Mic?
This isn't why I came on. Anyways,
I gotta promote you, man. You're here on the show.
I'm cold as fuck. Yeah, man. Tonight, debuting. I'm sorry, Greg caught me off guard. He doesn't tell me these things. Promoting tonight is Joes and Pros with me and Jim Cross. We're doing it all with minor league baseball players that are former college teammates. This episode or this series for this season is going to be all about friends versus foes. So guys who used to be teammates are now going to be rivals, which is going to be really exciting. We've got a bunch of college athletes all the way from Ole Miss to Tennessee to everywhere else around the United States. It's going to be a lot of fun. You can also catch me on Skytown. We do everything Chicago Sky. We have interviews with Candace Parker, Allie Quigley, Courtney Vandersloot, and the entire cast of the Chicago Sky. That'll be coming up very soon. Number 5 overall pick. I'm excited about it. We're going to try to get to the draft. Shout out Jay Ness and the Phoenix Suns for just continuing to be a horrible franchise. So shout out to Jay Ness. But other than that, you can find me on Mike on the Mic or the Shy.Kid on TikTok. You already know I'm with Craig Campbell on the morning show at the All Sports All Plays Network. Other than that, you can find me with Rob Scott on Bullsheet every Friday at 6 p.m. Central. It's going to be exciting. The Bulls fucking suck right now. So Rob and I don't have a lot to talk about, but we're going to get there. It's going to come together. We're going to be all right.
Yeah, you can find Mike on all those different shows. You can see him right here at the bottom of the screen. Here on the All Sports All Plays Network. And I know it's a quick little appearance by Mike here. But we always appreciate having Mike on the show. Mike's.
I'm sorry. My English teacher just wouldn't shut the fuck up. She's like, she just kept talking, and I was just like, stop. But
Please
I
let me
digress.
go.
Yeah, I was just like, what do we? Well, I don't want to let you guys out too early, and there was like 20 minutes left, and I was like, if you don't got shit else to say,
I'm out of here.
what are we doing?
What are we
Yeah,
doing? But if you want to check out Mike and all the shows that he's a part of, the Friends versus Foes series that's coming out, Bullshit, mentioned Mike on the Mic, Skytown, all those are here on the All Sports All Plays Network, and you can find those by following all of the social media platforms. You can find all your favorite shows. Search on YouTube, search ASAP Sports Network, on Facebook at All Sports All Plays, Twitter at ASAP Network 1, and on Twitch at ASAP Network. Like, share, comment, subscribe. We got the chat that goes up. I like this mailbag thing. I think we should start doing this at the end of the show. I think that'd be fun. But that requires your input, people. Requires your input. So hit us up in the chat. Hit us up in the chat. Mike, are you available tomorrow?
Yes.
Think so? Okay. There's a possibility. I don't know. I might be available for the show tomorrow, but I know Ray's not available on Fridays, so we're trying to find some pieces to help fit together. But anyway, so we're gonna find out. Okay. So
I know I have an MRI at noon, but I think I should be here. I should definitely be here.
So check us out.
Yes.
All Sports, All Plays, ASAP in the morning, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. We're at 12:01 on the East Coast. It's time for us to roll. But hey, Mike Hughes, always great to see you on the show. Appreciate having you on. And like I said, you can also check out Mike at OTH Chicago. This guy does it all. He does it all.
I was actually doing that right now. I was gonna.
See, there you go.
I gotta figure out how to do it, but once I figure out how to do it,
I got an update for you off air, by the way. So, but all right, you can check us out Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, here on the All Sports All Plays Network at ASAP in the morning. For Mike Hughes, I'm Craig Campbell. Have a great Thursday, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. If not tomorrow, we'll see you Monday. Have a great one.
All Sports All Plays. All Sports All Plays. All Sports All Plays. 365, we making a plays. We talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All Sports All Plays.